Welcome to the Black Atheist Network. Today we're discussing an important topic as it deals with the taboo of homosexuality. As an atheist, you tend to find yourself in debates regarding various issues. And interestingly, one of the more interesting topics that crops up is homosexuality in light of natural selection and biological evolution. So I wanted to tackle that head on, and I feel it's a positive thing to have these sorts of discussions. The point normally made from the perspective of a religious believer in these types of debates is basically, doesn't the whole concept of homosexuality, meaning the coupling of two same-sex people, which obviously cannot lead to reproduction, go against Charles Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection, and the fact that more offspring are supposed to be produced and can actually survive? Therefore, because homosexuality does not generate reproduction of our species, it's obviously an abomination of sorts, morally wrong, and flies in the face of scientific theory. All right, so these are the types of questions that I really like taking because at least they try to keep the conversation within the realm of science, which is where it needs to be, not within the realm of religious nonsense. I can feel that there's some sort of religious nonsense under the surface of this question, but at least they try to frame it within the bounds of science, which is a conversation that can be had. This is another question that comes up a lot, and you never really hear anyone tackle it, better yet, an African-American atheist tackle it. With respect to the question of same-sex couples going against natural selection, in a nutshell, the answer is possibly yes. No one wants to say that, but hear me out. The answer is possibly yes, that it does go against what people would consider the concept of natural selection and reproduction and all kinds of that stuff. But that's not the whole story when it comes to biology and the progression of the human species, and a species being fit for survival. So let me delve into that with a little bit of more detail and clarity. Natural selection has more to do with the entire species on the whole and whether or not it is fit to survive. I put that in quotation marks, and how do I say this? There's many factors that contribute to a species being deemed fit for survival, and counterintuitively, being able to reproduce is only one of those factors that contributes to a species being fit for survival. I'll explain. So as a social species, meaning we live in groups and we thrive on cooperation, one could competently argue that it's just as important for the species to be fit for survival by having individuals that are kind, cooperative, unselfish, honest, etc. All of those attributes increases a species' fitness level on the whole, and therefore increases their chances of survival, and thus are in alignment with natural selection. As a scientist, atheist, or anyone using reason, homosexuality being viewed under this lens is okay, because it's okay if you do not procreate, because you can still play a vital role in fostering the fitness level of the species, as long as your actions are in alignment with the needs of the social species, meaning you're someone that's kind, you're honest, you're nurturing, you're providing, you're unselfish, etc. All of these virtues that religious people try to claim as their own, as if these actions only belong to them. But what we're saying is that as long as you adhere to those actions, you are in alignment with natural selection. It doesn't matter if you have a predisposition towards someone of the same sex. It's a simple matter. The same concept extends to women that choose to not have children, or anyone for that matter that makes the conscious choice to not procreate. They can still play a vital role in ensuring the success of the species through their interaction with others. After all, we are a social species and part of an interconnected web. Ironically, this notion that we are a social species and we thrive on cooperation and everyone should be more focused on aligning their behavior with being kind, honest, nurturing, providing, unselfish, etc. All of these good things are the things that give an atheist their sense of morality. I'll delve deeper in that in a later video, but basically in a nutshell, I am moral because I know that I'm honest, I'm nurtured, I'm unselfish, and I have the greater good of the species in mind with all of my action. I know that my actions will increase the species' fitness level and our chances of survival. I am a moral person within the bounds of our subjective morality, because there is no absolute morality or objective morality. One shouldn't need the fear of an invisible creator or some book written 2,000 years ago in the Middle Eastern desert to give you a sense of morality. True morality is a global rule that applies to the confines of the species and only has the species' best interest in mind. Now, there could be some conflicts there, but that's another topic. As an atheist, I only do things that I feel will ultimately benefit the long-term survival of the species. It's bigger than me, and I have no problem feeling from the jump that it's all bigger than me. That's another big difference between an atheistic point of view and a religious point of view. I acknowledge up front that everything is much bigger than me. What that simply means is that we're all interconnected on the same planet, and the entire trajectory of the species is the goal. It's not about just how I treat my neighbor or how I treat my daughter. Ultimately, these are all important, but the results and fruits of that are much bigger than me and my immediate genetic lineage. Because homosexuals don't procreate doesn't mean that it flies in the face of science and evolution. In fact, for this very reason, one could argue that it's paramount that education on homosexuality should be researched and taught and understood from a scientific perspective. Otherwise, it's only going to get demonized, mischaracterized, and misrepresented from a biological standpoint. I feel it's just as relevant as any other human attribute. As humans, we have emotions, we have humor, we have wars, and there's incidences of homosexuality within our species. It just comes with the territory of being human and the human experience. I honestly feel the world needs a re-education on these concepts, but this time without preconceived notions and misrepresentations. But that begs the question because the world never really got an education on homosexuality in the first place. It seems as if this issue comes up in current events and social media a lot now. You get all these people with opinions coming out of the woodwork, but none of them have the science background or speak in the language of science. Every religious person that I know, they seem to instantly become some sort of scientific expert on biology and evolution the second that homosexuality is brought up in the media. But on an everyday level, these are the same people that denounce the scientific method and the processes of science. Again, it's a weird dichotomy exhibited by those whom believe in a God and concepts of religion. It's literally insane and should be called out as such. In short, the issue of homosexuality is a science issue. At the end of the day, it's a science issue. It's not a religious issue. It's not a question to be answered by clergy, priests, or imams. Therefore, it should be discussed in the language of science, not in the language of religion. When we want to talk about the rapture, talking snakes, things of that nature, that's when we can have a serious yet maybe entertaining discussion in the language and the realm of religion. But when we talk about things involving the human condition and whether or not things are a natural part of being human and whether or not they play a part into the long-term survival of the species, that's a science and biology question. So it's all about staying in your lane, so to speak. Now, I didn't mean to turn this video into a rant of sorts, but like I said before, we're going to keep these types of videos and conversations coming. I invite you to like, subscribe, share, and buckle up, and thanks for supporting the Black Atheist Network.